Jesus said to the Jews who believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying you will be made free?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly, I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household. The Son has a place there forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are descendants of Abraham, yet you look for an opportunity to kill me, because there is no place in you for my word. I declare what I have seen in the Father's presence. As for you, you should do what you have heard from the Father." They answered him, "Abraham is our father." Jesus said to them, "If you were Abraham's children, you would be doing what Abraham did. But now you are trying to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You are indeed doing what your father does." They said to him, "We are not illegitimate children. We have one Father, God himself." Jesus said to them, "If God were your Father, you would love me, for I came from God, and now I am here. I did not come on my own, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot accept my word. You are from your father the devil, and you choose to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks according to his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin? If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? Whoever is from God hears the words of God. The reason you do not hear them is that you are not from God." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. When our son was in high school, we took him on several college trips to help him find the school that was right for him. When we toured Miami University in Ohio, the school he eventually attended, and coincidentally Sudi's alma mater, we came at one point in the tour to the center of campus. And at the center of campus is an academic building called Upham Hall. In the middle of Upham Hall is an arch, and Miami folklore says that if you kiss your sweetheart under the arch, you will get married. This is known as a Miami merger. Seriously. So the question for us this morning is, Sudi, did you ever... No, that is not the question this morning. The question is, what words are on the arch at Upham Hall? And it's not, get your Miami merger here. Neither will you find some memorable quote by a former university president. The words that are etched into this stone arch come from the reading that Jen just gave us from the Gospel of John, where Jesus says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Interestingly, Upham Hall is not the only public building that has these words inscribed in stone. The original headquarters building of the CIA was designed in the mid-1950s, And etched into the wall of its main lobby is this biblical verse which characterizes the CIA's mission. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Yes, that sounds a bit ironic from a government organization known for its secretive practices and skilled in the art of deception. But this verse is a key to its mission. Their goal is to sift through all the lies and the deceit so that they can uncover the truth. Truth is not exactly enjoying its heyday currently, is it? It's not as bad as it was in Germany in the 1930s, when a campaign of lies persuaded the nation to blame all of its troubles and fears on Jews, the LGBTQ community, gypsies, and those with mental illness. But I've not seen in my lifetime such widespread lying and such dogged determination to ignore the truth. Living in an era when lies are disseminated routinely and people manufacture stories to bolster their opinions, it's essential that people of faith ratchet up our demand for truth. The 9th commandment declares that God expects all people of faith to not bear false witness. The word truth appears more than 20 times in the Gospel of John, and it appears more than 90 times in the New Testament. We who follow Jesus should be alarmed about the downhill slide from truth with a capital T to truth with a little t, to my truth, to truthiness, to alternative facts. A colleague notes that a dozen years ago, the internet idealists were hoping that with more voices, it would allow truth to rise to the top. That there would be this democratizing of ideals, and the World Wide Web would allow for more truth to be known. Hasn't quite worked out that way, has it? Instead, routinely, we see totally fictitious stories blaze across the internet faster than a California wildfire and gobbled up by people who want to believe the malarkey, regardless of well-documented facts to the contrary. While we are to seek the truth and speak the truth, the letter to the Ephesians declares that we are to speak the truth in love. That is, truth-seeking should not be motivated by a desire to humiliate or to scold. Neither should it be a strategy for elevating ourselves to a position of superiority. We do not pursue truth in order to bludgeon those who cling to their alternative facts. We pursue truth because relationships and communities collapse when they are undermined by lies and deception. Marriages crumble when a spouse is deceitful. Families splinter when individuals are not honest with each other. Citizens become contentious when lies poison the atmosphere of their communities. Now, I'm not talking about innocent white lies. All of us know that there are some situations when an innocent fib is the best course of action. You may remember that commercial where Abraham Lincoln is standing behind his wife who's just put on a new dress, and she says, "Does this make me look fat?" Honest Abe was unable to utter a single syllable because what is expected for him to say, he can't say he can't say the truth. When a man asks his spouse, "Do I still have the right stuff?" he is not asking for an answer that will pass a lie detector test. Our country is not facing a problem with white lies that are intended to avoid being cruel. We are facing an epidemic of lying that is intended to deceive, incite, and divide. With the technology at our disposal today, anyone can spread a message and can do it with no regard whatsoever for the truth. Now, people have always been able to spread propaganda, and there have always been hordes of gullible people ready to lap it up. But with the internet, it is far easier to do. It can be disseminated to a much, much wider audience, and it can be done in seconds. The Ten Commandments are bedrock principles for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Among the restrictions named in the Ten Commandments are do not kill, steal, commit adultery, covet, or bear false witness. Each time you come into this sanctuary, I hope you will look up at this stained glass window with the tablets on it, the image of the Ten Commandments, and remember that these are our core convictions. The church is vital to society because we are commanded to uphold moral principles. Now, I'm not exactly sure what I believe about the devil, but I know that there is an evil, chaotic force in the world that tempts people to speak words and commit actions that are destructive to human community. And one of the chief works of the Prince of Darkness is deceit. People of faith are expected to expose the lies and combat them with the truth. Yet, that's not all we're called to do with regards to the truth. In addition to combating fake news and alternative facts, God also expects us to speak the truth even when it is the unpopular thing to do. Now, I'm confident none of us are ever going to be mistaken for Jesus, and I doubt anyone here will ever be pictured as Isaiah or Amos. But there are occasions when we must speak a prophetic voice. Have you ever heard of Benjamin Lay? He lived in Abington, Pennsylvania in the 1700s. Lay was a little man, odd man. He was a dwarf, just a smidgen over 4 feet tall. His head was unusually large for his small frame, and his legs were so slender that people wondered how they kept his whole body erect. Plus, he was called a hunchback because of the disease he had that had caused a curvature in his spine. He referred to himself as Little Benjamin, but he thought of himself as Little David, who struck down Goliath. Many of us know that Quakers are abolitionists who helped run the Underground Railroad, which liberated slaves from their southern slave owners and helped resettle them in the North. However, Lay was a Quaker at a time when Quakers were slave owners, and when slavery seemed to many people around the world as natural and as unchangeable as the sun, the moon, and the stars. On September 19th, 1738, Little Benjamin walked into a Quaker meeting house. It was the biggest Philadelphia yearly meeting. He wore a great coat which hid his military uniform underneath and the sword he was wearing. Beneath that coat, he was also carrying a hollowed-out book in which he had this secret compartment, and he had placed this tied-off animal bladder that he had filled with bright red pokeberry juice. Because Quakers have no formal minister, people would speak up as the Spirit moved them. Well, Lay waited as other people got up and spoke. But finally, he rose. Many Quakers in Pennsylvania and New Jersey had grown rich on Atlantic commerce, and many of them owned slaves. To them, Lay announced in this booming voice that God Almighty respects all people equally, rich and poor, men and women, white and black. He said that keeping slaves was the greatest sin in the world. And how can people who profess the golden rule keep slaves? With all eyes fixed on him at this point, Lay thundered on, "Thus shall God shed the blood of those people who hold fellow creatures in slavery." And with that, he opened up his coat, pulled out the sword, held the book up high, and thrust the sword through it. People gasped as this red liquid poured down his arm. And he splattered this red juice on the slave owners, and he prophesied a dark future. Any Quaker who owns slaves must expect physical, moral, and spiritual death, he said. The room erupted in chaos, and several men grabbed Lay and dragged him out of the room. But for nearly 25 years, Lay showed up at various Quaker meetings around Philadelphia and confronted one slave owner after another about their complicity in the evil of owning human beings. One time, he even temporarily kidnapped the child of some slave owners so that they could feel what it was like for the Africans who had their relatives stolen from them and taken overseas. Lay became well known throughout Pennsylvania as people shared stories about him and the ideas that he professed. Of course, many people said about Lay, he was diseased in the intellect and cracked in his head. That's the kind of treatment people can receive when they stand up and speak the truth. This weekend is a marker to remember the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how standing up for the truth led to his assassination. Now, I suspect none of us will ever face death threats for standing up for the truth. The truth that all people are created in God's image, regardless of their race, their sexual orientation, their religion, their immigration status, or their economic standing. We risk being slandered and ostracized, and we may have to endure reprisals. But what's the alternative? To adopt alternative facts instead of the truth? To accommodate our faith to popular opinion? Dr. King said, "He who lives with untruth lives in spiritual slavery." Freedom is the bonus we get for knowing the truth. If you name Jesus as your Lord, and if you follow his ways, you will know the truth that emanates from loving God and loving your neighbor. And that truth will make you free.